Hey everybody, just before this episode gets going, I need to address something. This episode was made at the same time as the Lead episode last week and the Saxton with Scarthingham episode you will have seen the week prior to that. At that time, I had no idea that the name of this village was pronounced Towton. Throughout this episode, I refer to it as Towton. Thanks to comments on those two previous videos, I now know differently, so please excuse my pronunciation of the village throughout this episode. After all, we are still talking about the same place. Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot, and I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. Welcome back to the district of Selby in North Yorkshire. Now, you might think, looking around me here, that I'm just stood in the middle of nowhere. Well, you know, I like the middle of nowhere. It's glorious just to see fields and farmland. It's brilliant, I quite like it. But to be honest with you, here, there's a little bit more to this land, this field and farmland, than meets the eye. And that's because this field and that field and maybe that field and maybe that one, I don't know, were all once the scene of a battle. This is the parish of Towton. You cannot visit Towton in North Yorkshire without stopping by here, the scene of one of the bloodiest battles in English history, the Battle of Towton. The village is best known for this battle, fought on Palm Sunday, the 29th of March 1461, during the Wars of the Roses. It was at this battle that Sir David Mathew saved the life of Edward IV. Once king, Edward granted Sir David permission to use Towton on the Mathew family crest. The battle itself has been described as probably the largest and bloodiest battle ever fought on English soil. An estimated 50,000 soldiers fought for hours during a snowstorm on the day of the battle. It's very windy up here. It's on a hill, this part of Selby, and here's a map showing Towton and the battlefield trail. So there's Towton village. As you can see, it's not very big, but the trail is huge in comparison. In fact, it's 1.7 miles long or 3 kilometers long. We are here at Dacre's Cross, and the battlefied trail is basically this farm track which runs down here past the Bloody Meadow, and then it runs all the way along here and back into the village there. So I imagine this area here, these fields here, which is actually that one, would have been the scene of the Battle of Towton. There you go. The Battle of Towton was to affirm the victor's right to rule over England through force of arms. The incumbent King of England, Henry VI, on the throne since 1422, was a weak, ineffectual and mentally unsound ruler, which encouraged the nobles to scheme for control over him. The situation deteriorated in the 1450s into a civil war between the supporters of his queen, Margaret of Anjou, and those of his cousin, Richard, Duke of York. In 1460, the English Parliament passed an act to let York succeed Henry as king, which the Queen refused to accept. York would be killed in the Battle of Wakefield, but the late Duke's supporters considered the Lancastrians to have reneged on a parliamentary act of succession, which is a legal agreement, and York's son and heir Edward found enough backing to denounce Henry and declare himself king. In 1929, the Towton Cross was erected on the battlefield to commemorate the event. Various archaeological remains and mass graves related to the battle were found in the area centuries after the engagement. Later generations remembered the battle as depicted in William Shakespeare's dramatic adaptation of Henry's life, Henry VI, Part 3, Act 2, Scene 5. Legend tells of local rivers that ran red with blood for several days after the battle. The main hand-to-hand combat lasted hours, exhausting the combatants. Many were killed while fleeing, some were trampled, and others drowned in the rivers. Several who were taken prisoner were executed. Some of the bodies now lay in Saxton's churchyard nearby. In all, this is certainly one of the most important battlefields and battles that England has ever had. So undoubtedly the Battle of Towton is by far the most important historical event in the village and the parish of Towton to cover. Absolutely it is. But we have a village to cover as well here, and that's that way. Let's go and have a look at the village now and see what else we can find. Towton itself is a small village and civil parish in the Selby district of North Yorkshire. It was historically part of the West Riding of Yorkshire until 1974. Naturally, most of the information out there relating to Towton references the battle in some way, shape or form, leaving very little to say about the actual village. However, I think I may have found a few interesting bits and pieces, so here goes. The village has a fair selection of both new and old properties. The average house here goes on the market for £395,000. The demographic here is generally white British at 99.1%. One thing I did notice about the population is the gender of the inhabitants here is virtually equal, and that's very rare. In 2019 there were 114 males and 115 females living in Towton. The area Towton covers includes the village and the battlefield and a few other bits of farmland besides. In total this is just over 3.5 square kilometres, giving Towton a population density of 63.84. The parish council covers the village of Towton, also oversees Kirby Wharf and the smaller hamlets of Grimston and North Milford, which are much more rural areas on the southern edge of Tadcaster. Despite that, only Towton falls within the parish boundaries. Both Kirby Wharf with North Milford and Grimston are their own civil parishes. So as you may have gathered, this video was recorded before Christmas, which is why there are Christmas lights up. It's not unusual to see villages have their own Christmas tree, obviously. We've seen quite a few of those before, but to have their own Christmas lights, especially like this, is very, very unusual. You don't see this everywhere. You see it in towns and in cities, but you definitely don't see it in small villages like Towton. The main road through the village is the A162, or Main Street. This has been the subject of a recent road safety project, primarily to do with the speed of traffic that passes through the village. Unfortunately, despite being such a historic Yorkshire village, most traffic merely passes through Towton rather than stops, as it's located on a major road between Tadcaster and Sherburn and Elmere. New measures include a new flashing 30mph sign, repeat signs on lampposts and other street furniture to encourage drivers to keep to the speed limit. Work began on this in spring 2021. As a small rural locality and with no village hall, all the council meetings are held in the one and only local pub, the Rockingham Arms. That's also where the village notice board is located. Towton Battlefield and its history are carefully maintained by the Towton Battlefield Society. As well as the obvious battle history, Towton has another major claim to fame. In 2010 and 2011, a pair of gold torques dating to the Iron Age were discovered by metal detectorists in a stream. The Towton torques were declared as treasure, and the Yorkshire Museum launched a public funding campaign to raise £60,000 to purchase the torques. They were acquired by the museum in November 2013. Both torques are gold alloys and formed from a twisted wire with looped terminals. You can see them in today's picture bit. So if you walk up Old London Road, you come to the Battlefield Trail again. This is where it comes out in the village on this trail here. And there's another information board about the Battle of Towton right here. There you go. Towton Hall is a large building located behind this wall. The building, first built in the 17th century and renovated since, is believed to include the remnants of Richard III's commemorative chantry chapel, which was built after the Battle of Towton. The chapel was built to remember the victory of the House of York in the battle. Many male skeletons of the soldiers were discovered beneath the floor of the dining room. And I can't not mention Rosa Spinacissima, better known as the Towton Rose, which can be found on the battlefield. It's reported that the soldiers of the battle were buried in large mounds on the field of battle, and the survivors, either in affection or in triumph, placed some rose trees on these makeshift tombs of their fallen countrymen. These mounds are merely circles now, but in 1846 the Reverend G.F. Townsend, Vicar of Brantingham in East Yorkshire, on a visit to the battlefield, noted clusters of rose trees. He noted them to be white with the occasional pink spot on the flower, like the traces of blood that once ran here. Okay, so I've pretty much taken you around the entire village. Time for a picture bit. Here it comes for the parish of Towton. Okay, to finish with, I couldn't think of any better place to come than back here at the battlefield, because to be honest with you, as far as Towton goes, I don't think anybody would look much further than this as a landmark to come to in this part of Selby. Although I have tried my best to put the village on the map like I do with every other parish which I've released so far. There you go, I'm done with this one and I'm off to my next one in Selby. It won't be today though, because as you may be able to tell, it's starting to get a little bit dark here now. It's quite late in the day and it is November when this one was filmed, so obviously the nights are drawing in and it won't be long before it'll be dark at about 3 o'clock. So I'm off to my next one. I've been Andy, I've been the Village Idiot, this has been the Parish of Towton, and I'm out.